That I want to talk about is I was looking through the scrap bin, just checking to make sure everything's thrown out. But what I found was pieces like this. And what I want to get, the point across that I want to get is just because it's too small for your leg. Is there another part that we could use this for on our? Okay, so I could either do my triangle, so I could for the support. It says scrap pieces of lumber, so I could either take this 45 it off, rip it to 3 inches first, and then 45 each one of this. Okay, so I could do that, get my 4 support triangles, or I could end up my handles, right? Okay, so even though we called for a board that's on our bill, here's what we call for, like 14 inches long or something. TJ, what are you doing? Okay. So it calls for 14 inches long, but what is the minimum length that the boards need to be for us to send through our planer? Lengthwise.
14.
16.
10, okay? So if this board is longer than 10 inches, which it is, okay? So I could end up getting a handle out of this and this, okay? So it's not necessarily the 14 inches that we called for, but it's still the same material there. Also, one of the downsides with working with lumber is that a lot of material is wasted, okay? And that's just the natural process of it, because our boards, if you remember, for solid lumber, how much material do we add to the final thickness? We add 1/2 inch to the width, but for thickness, how much do we add?
0.25.
What's that? Quarter of an inch, right? So 0.25. So if this is 3/4 of an inch, which typically we work with 3/4 of an inch finished thickness, and we have to add material. Okay, so when we go to the lumber, when we go to the lumber yard, we buy material in 4/4, so an inch thick. Okay, we come to the shop, we plane it down to final thickness, so it's down to 3/4 of an inch. Okay, so right off the bat, mostly what we're losing 25% of our material. Okay, because if we have an inch, take off 1/4. Okay, so 25% of our material is basically turned into dust. Okay, so we can recycle that later. We'll get into different processes. But I just wanted to make sure that you guys are aware that even though this is too short for yours, okay, for your leg, and this also too, just because you cut it too short, okay, so I'm assuming that this person cut it too short, it's not long enough. That's one of the mistakes. That's what's the whole saying, measure twice, cut once. Okay, so from there you just have to make a mistake, because we've been working on this for 5 weeks now, 5 or 6 weeks. Okay, so you're 5 or 6 weeks in, and now you have to start all back over. Hey, granted, we work in the shop every day, all day, every day, but okay. So you have to start going back through. And then, again, one of the main things was moving all your pieces through at once. All right, so what was the main question, or what was today's question?
What is one of the advantages of, or what is the advantage of plywood?
Okay, so what is one advantage of plywood? It doesn't warp. Okay,
It's cheap.
it's cheaper. Okay, anyone else? What's that?
Flexible.
Depending on the certain type, you can actually make it and kind of engineer your own lumber. You can take solid lumber and kind of core it up. But it is pretty flexible. Like if you have not 3/4 of an inch, but you can buy stuff in 1/2 inch and things like that. But one of the benefits of plywood is that it's stronger. Okay, it doesn't warp, and then it's also cheaper. Okay, so when you end up taking 2 pieces of lumber, and we'll talk about this more later on class. But if you were to glue it up properly, if you take 2 pieces, glue this joint up here, okay, a proper glue joint is actually stronger than the material itself. Okay, so one of the ways to test it, when we're making our top, is you take off the saw kerf and kind of test your joint to see how tight it is. But instead of just showing that when you take two pieces of wood and you glue them together, and if it's proper, when you actually try and pull these apart, most of the time they actually rip the material apart itself. So the glue itself makes the material stronger. Okay? So since plywood is mostly made out of glue, it ends up being stronger than just solid lumber itself. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about this week. I'll go through the plans for the week. Someone grab the lights, please. While I'm waiting for this to warm up, what I did, if you guys looked on Skyward, is I had on Skyward the grading for the legs, just the legs itself, the grading rubric is due at the end of class Tuesday. Okay, so that's just to kind of help you keep, judge yourself. Are you further ahead than the group? Are you kind of starting to fall behind? Do you need to come in at all? Okay, so again, the way that this is set up is so that it's graded in sections instead of, we haven't really had that many worksheets. Okay, so you turn in the worksheets, you've got an A all the way across. Try to pick your head up. So you've got, you're doing the basic work. Okay, so there's a worksheet once a month. You've got that in, then it comes time to your final grading test, and you basically just threw it together. Okay, and then that drops you. And then you get a big argument, well, how can I have an A throughout the entire semester, and then I end up with a C because of the project? Okay, so what this is there for, it's for grading in sections. Okay, so kind of like the benchmarks we're going through. So you grade your legs, then you grade your leg assembly, then you grade your sides, so on and so forth. Okay, so make sure you guys are turning those in. So again, we have to go through that. So call me over, we'll grade them, we'll go through that as well. This is what it looks like for the week. We're going to talk about plywood quick. Then Tuesday is going to be material estimation. Wednesday, since it's a half day, what we're going to be doing is going through material estimation for linear feet and square feet. Okay, so dealing with our trim, because the goal at the end of the week is to have our bill of materials completely done and turned in. Okay, so basically figuring out how much this project is going to cost. If you guys need a new bill of materials, you can go on to folders, and you should have right here. So your bill of materials, you can go ahead and print that out. Okay, so that's the big thing. Make sure tomorrow you guys are bringing your bill of materials, and you'll need to bring it through all week. Going back to that, Thursday and Friday, I'll be gone. So Thursday, we'll be in the CAD lab. I'll just have a video of what the next step is going to be for your research project. You guys will watch that, go ahead and work. And then Friday, what it'll be is basically, again, a video of me going through the bill of materials. It'll stop and be started throughout, so you guys can work on it throughout the class. Okay? So I'll be gone Thursday and Friday, but we'll still be working. All right. So the parts that I want you guys to know for plywood, there's two main parts. You have your core and your veneer. Okay? Can anyone tell me what the core is? The middle, right? So this is the actual, so these different layers right here, that's the core of the plywood. This top where your finished surface itself, that thin layer, that's your veneer, okay? What would be one of the benefits, we kind of talked about this, of having, the veneer on top?
It looks like wood.
It looks like solid lumber all the way through, right? And if you guys watch, so if you have a more expensive material, you can actually stretch the value of your material by basically turning it into plywood. If you guys, what is it?
Yep.
Where they go and I think I said this before, where they go and they take the logs, they pull them out of the river, those petrified logs. You can turn those into veneer and basically take an entire log, instead of having solid lumber, you can make plywood out of it and sell it. Basically you're at least doubling your money, because you're getting the look of a solid piece, but it's more stable, it won't warp as much, and it's cheaper. Okay, so you're basically, like I said, you're at least doubling your value, if not quadrupling. Okay, so veneer. A lot of times, does everyone have those veneer countertops? If you guys even look at your tables, if you feel underneath the table, okay, put your hands on. Just one finger. Okay, so if you feel that under there, what that is, it's compressed board. So it gives it kind of the look of, say, a vinyl tabletop. Okay, but all it is just, it's a cheap core that keeps it stable and from warping, and then you just put a nice surface over the top. Same thing too, like these countertops. That's the big thing. Is it kind of gets at the look of granite countertops, but if you actually feel underneath that edge right here, has anyone done that at houses at all, where you feel underneath and you can feel the plywood? Okay, so you're actually able to feel if it's solid granite or just a veneer top. So what I have put here should. Sorry, I thought I had this open. You're wrong, getting this. Oh, there we go. Alright, here's another thing too with the plywood itself. Okay, so this is actually a picture of the door right over there. In this very own class, we have plywood and veneer. Okay, so this again, it gives it the overall look of a solid maple door, but it's cheaper. Okay, and it's more stable. So again, one of the downsides with solid lumber is that it warps. Has anyone been to any really old house where they have a solid wood door? Okay, a lot of times what they'll do, in the summer, it'll be nice and you'll actually have to force it closed, and then in the winter, it's easy to open and close. Does anyone have that? Experience that? Yep, in solid core. Okay, so what ends up happening again is that solid lumber, it expands and contracts, but with the plywood, what you end up having is it's a little bit more control. Okay, so it doesn't expand and contract, if at all. I had a quick video which it didn't transfer over. So I'll have to show that. I'll show the video tomorrow. But the other thing that I want to point out is that you have plywood or OSB. So this is, again, it's another type of engineered lumber that it's more stabilized. Where do you guys see this being used? Construction. In construction, right? For sheathing, for actually keeping your the walls. It gives it some extra strength and actually gives the siding some support, as well as keeps the insulation from coming up. Don't people put on the floor? Yeah, that's another. Yeah, if you were to most likely, if you were to rip up your floor, I'm not suggesting go home and doing that, obviously. Okay, so if you take the carpet or anything like that, you have most likely OSB or some sort of plywood underneath. That's your subfloor. If you guys go underneath your basement, kind of like if you see, here's an example of an attic. Okay, so you can actually see the joists underneath there. Older homes will have wood floor planks, and then they'll actually have a finished hardwood floor. It's only about 1.5 inches strips or so. Okay, underneath that, there's going to either be some planks of boards or actual plywood. You can see that what it does is it covers up that space in between your joists. Like if you guys ever go up into your attic and it's unfinished, does anyone have to do that? Helping out pulling wires or anything like that? Okay, you have to make sure that you walk on the actual joists themselves, because if you're up in an attic and you see the insulation and the joists, okay, odds are that's an unfinished, okay, almost 100%. That's an unfinished basement. If you were to step in between the joists, okay, you're going to go right through the drywall and pop through the ceiling. Okay, so that's kind of one of those things. You gotta be mindful that when you're up in an attic doing work, okay, you gotta make sure that you're either on that center walkway that they have going down between the trusses or the joists. and then so you don't actually step down through puncturing the drywall and plaster. Okay, kinda got off topic, but I'll show a video of making that, of how plywood's made, and then we'll go from there. So, any questions? Alright, yes, go ahead, get to work.